Microsoft has this new GenAI scripting language, which is, I think, interesting. I haven't taken a look at this. This video will be a bit more casual and live. I want to explore it together with you and just check out what the idea behind this and its features. So far, what I've seen is a few very shallow articles in this homepage, basically. And it looks like a scripting language designed to efficiently prompt AI large language models. Yeah, as I mentioned, I think this is backed by Microsoft, built by Microsoft. In fact, it's one of their open source projects, I believe. It looks open source at least. Has a GitHub page. Yeah, it's definitely open source. So let's take a look at it. Programmatically assemble prompts for LLMs using JavaScript. Okay, this could be useful. I can see how. For example, JavaScript is an efficient scripting language. You can have efficient whoops, input-output, file input-output also, and pass it to our large language models efficiently. You can work with data sets as input, for example, a large amount of the JSON data which you want to analyze row by row, or CSV data. That can be useful, I think, especially for people who know JavaScript, which is really a lot of developers. And there's a JavaScript toolbox to work with prompts, whatever that means. Abstraction to make it easy and productive. I mean, I guess that's the abstraction to the GenAI prompts, I would guess. And VSCode integration, that's kind of expected. I'm not sure what kind of integration there is, besides probably IntelliSense and just highlighting. Let's see. So this is a basic example. This door, let me zoom a bit. This door and template string literal syntax, kind of. And you can write the prompt here, write a hello world poem. This is a template tag that creates a prompt. Okay. It's sent to an LLM you configured, so you basically configure your LLM with an API, and it will generate something in its place. My question is this considered an expression? Is it a statement? What happens? I mean, I prompt it. How do I get the output? Is it data on its place? Can I save that in a variable and access it some? Let's see. So you can add files, data. Yeah, I guess that's the point using JavaScript, because this you can do in anywhere. I mean, in a web prompt, in whatever. But this seems to be the point. So you read a text file, you define, what is that? Context-friendly way, define data, and data is file. Okay, so this is sort of like a variable, a macro, just some definition, I guess. And you can say analyze data and extract data in JSON, in data JSON. So this, I guess, will save a JSON file in the root folder if this is running like a Node app, which I guess it is. So the def function includes the content of the file and optimizes it for the target LLM. So that's cool, I guess. You can, yeah, that's awesome. The way I understand that is you define this data. They don't really call it anyhow, not a variable or a macro or I don't know what. But you define data, and this will optimize the format of data, I guess, for the LLM. So the way I understand it, if you send it to OpenAI, for example, it might have a certain format. If you send it to Gemini, it might optimize it in a different way. So here we will see a little bit more info about that. So this is basically files.genai.mjs for modular JavaScript. And then we see a little bit about the def command. A name that can be used. So this is called a name, basically. In this case, file. And then, does it answer my question? Appends text to the prompt. Save output to file. Okay. So that basically is more like a statement, not an expression. Yeah, it doesn't seem to return values. It just executes. and thus, as a side effect, whatever you tell it, in this case, save output to file. So this is what it sends. This is basically like the compiled, transpiled script. We tell it this is the file, summarize it. And that's what it sends to the model. Text, file, the file contents, summarize. That makes sense. And the model returns content. And this is the content, text, markdown, blah, blah, the summary of that file, basically. Okay. And it will save it in the file we indicated here. Let's install it now. I need Node.js. Yeah, I have the LTS. VSCode extension. GenAIScript. Okay, let's install it. I don't have many extensions. Okay, Microsoft GenAIScript. You can preview output. So this basically executes it and you see the output. So I believe I can do index.genai.mjs. Was that the correct naming though? Let's see. GenAI.mjs. Okay, yeah. They should have mentioned that because here we go to config and I don't know. I'm guessing this is configured on top of every file. Is that true? So model OpenAI GPT-4o. I don't want that model. I have an Llama instance running. I have my Ollama instance running with Llama 3.2. Let me open. I think I have it running here. Yeah, I have the web UI right here. Here it is. And I have the Llama 3.2. Okay. So let's see. How do we do that? We have Ollama. So there are a lot of models. OpenAI, GitHub, Azure. We have Google, of course. Anthropic, Alibaba Cloud, and Ollama. Great. So with Ollama, of course, it's running OpenAI compatibility layer. It looks like they use the OpenAI API format and they use compatibility layers, which I guess is fine. So this is how we define an Ollama model. Whoops, like this. Model, Ollama, and I have Llama 3.2. Is that true? Yeah, Llama 3.2. Okay, so that should configure it. What's next? Pull the model, which may take some time. I mean, I have the model, so there's no problem. Okay, that should be it. Your first GenAI script. JavaScript with minimal syntax. GenAI MJS, GenAI source. So I need to make, by convention, a directory, GenAI source, and put that file here. Good. We can use TypeScript, whatever. I don't think TypeScript is necessary for this kind of scripting, to be honest. Okay, let's try that. I want to try that, really. Write a one-sentence poem. So I have this on the... I can just run it with the extension. Let's test that out. Okay, it's executed successfully. It took a few seconds. I mean, the installation of GenAIScript took a while. I guess it's a larger npm package, which makes sense, actually. It does start a server, apparently, which is interesting. After it installs, then it checked if I have the model. It attempted to pull it otherwise, which is nice. I mean, if you haven't got the model, you can just run any arbitrary script here, which executes on an arbitrary Ollama model, and it will automatically pull the model and execute your file. And then it executes index. And I get my prompt right here. Silent stars whisper through the night. Celestial will be of endless light. That's interesting. Then it has some sort of status code, execution, ending with success, and that's it. I mean, that makes sense. Okay, let's explore some more complex features because that's not useful at all. I can define files. Exposes the context through the environment variable. Okay, you can right-click on a folder and the environment files will contain all the files nested in that folder. I'm not sure I understand that completely, to be honest. I'm guessing, what does that mean? You can right click on a folder and the environment files will contain all the files nested in that folder. Why would I right click? The context is defined by the location you start executing the script. So I'm guessing environment files will be defined as an environment variable. Is that true? Let me see. Okay, let's define files here. Yeah, okay. So let's say these are files. Now I have GenAI source. What is the folder in that? In this case, it's in source samples markdown. So let's create a similar example. They have a source folder and I will make a markdown file, which I'll call something like, not sure. Let's say history of JS.markdown. And I'll actually generate it with AI. Generate a markdown, just text with the history of JavaScript, around 1000 words. Okay, the prompt executed. It took a while because it's a long article, but it just explains the history of JavaScript. I'll copy that and paste it here. It is valid markdown. At least it looks like valid markdown. All right. Whatever. It looks valid enough. I mean, this is a language model, not a parser, so. Now we have environment files here, as in the example, and I can say something like this. Let's see. You're an expert technical writer and proofreader. Let's say you're an expert technical writer. Review the documents in file and summarize them. Save the let's check out file input and output later. I want to summarize the contents of history of JS. Let's see if that even if environment files works as I think it does. So it's running. All right, apparently it isn't. We got an error. Files is empty. So I can right click on a file and run index on it. So that's how environment files work. Interesting. I'll wait for the prompt to execute again because it might take a while, and let's see the results. Okay, that executed successfully. It took a while, but keep in mind, it depends on the model speed. And I'm running my model locally, so the speed of the model is really the bottleneck, I believe. Here we have the results. They seem accurate. It's a summary. It's actually in Markdown. It kept the actual file format. Now, let's try file input output. So, just to be clear, by right click here in the documentation, because it says environment files, you can right click on a folder and the environment files will contain all files in the folder. If you right click on a file, the environment files will contain only that file. That meant the VSCode integration and clicking here actually, which you can, I guess, do with the command line as well. Just let's see. Does it say which command it executes? Not really, but I'm guessing you just pass the file as context, so to speak. So that's what it meant. Let's try input output. Say the result as a Word docx file. This is a little bit more complex than the simple text file. As file, let's see if it will keep the file name. It should, because file is defined here. Okay. Actually, file is not defined here. Check this out. This is kind of cool. We define files from environment files, and then we write review the documents in file, sort of like we're iterating files for every single file, but it understands automatically. I wonder if I rename this to something like documents and write document here, or maybe giraffes and write a giraffe here, will it still work? That it should. Let's see. Save the changes and run the script again. Okay, let's see what we got as results this time. I still have the output prompt even though I told it to save it as file. Now, I'm not sure if it did save a file. Let's check that out. Okay, it didn't. It did not save a file. So I said, based on the provided specification, I will review the documents in file, which is not explicitly mentioned. So it does realize I've defined only files. The documents are part of the provided code snippet. So it did summarize correctly. And then it says Word docx file. Here's the summary in a Word docx format. So this is what it understood as save the result as a Word docx. And then we have just Markdown, which is not correct. Now, to be fair, this seems like a LLM failure of Llama 3.2, not really the GenAIScript, because the GenAIScript, what did it prompt? There we go, files. Markdown preferred output format changelog. This is what we prompt after that. So this is the raw output of that script. Okay, that seems alright, I guess. Let's test something else. I'll generate something different. Generate a JSON array of Star Wars characters. I could get these from the Swap API as well, but that will be faster, I'm guessing. Let's see. Okay, I got my output. Let's copy that array. Looks good. I will rename that to Star Wars characters.json. Paste that right here. There are errors. That's interesting. It's normal for large language models to make errors. Otherwise, the object looks good. We have age, row, species. So let's give it a task for data manipulation, which would be simple with code even, but let's check if it can handle it. So analyze the Star Wars characters in files and create a CSV file called swsummary.csv, which shows the number of characters by row: Sith, Jedi, Druids, etc. Save that file to the file system. I just want to make sure this time we save the file. Maybe it was an error with my prompt. Okay, let's break it a bit so that it's readable. So I'll run that. I can see how that is useful. If you have a sort of collection of scripts that execute on files, specifically for file manipulation, just go right click, run that script, you select the file, the script you want to run. And there might be useful scripts there. If you do repetitive data related tasks, but you have to use a good model and make sure the settings are correct, at least for temperature, so that it's accurate, and always check it. So let's go back when it executes that and analyze what it did. Okay, let's see what we got. Executed successfully. Based on the provided data, I will analyze the characters and generate a CSV file with the desired summary. Makes perfect sense. Extract the rows. Seems correct at first glance. Yes, let's assume it's correct. Create a CSV file as prompted with the desired data. That is great. Valid CSV. To save this CSV file to the file system, I will use the JSON files preferred format and write it directly to a file. Data, file name, output, CSV file. This makes zero sense. Absolutely. This will create a new CSV file code. Will this create a new CSV file? This definitely wouldn't create a new CSV file. Okay. Here's the updated files object. Note that I didn't include the 1, 2, etc. indices in the output as they are not relevant for this analysis. If you need to include them, please let me know. What indices? Oh, of the JSON objects? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I guess it means I should include like an ID or an index here, and yeah, but it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make any sense in this case as we're summarizing. But all right. Did it actually create any kind of file? Not really. Still, I could copy it from here and create the file myself. I wonder if this is a fault of the model, of the large language model I'm using, Llama 3.2, or of GenAIScript. Because GenAIScript, true, the model is not the one that is creating the file. GenAIScript is creating the file based on the output of the model. And it doesn't seem to do that. But I also don't know if the model is producing the desired output that, for example, OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0 would, or something like that. Let's test its image capabilities, actually. Alpine landscape. Okay, that will do. It's too big. Let's get this one. Something very generic. If the file is an image, analyze it and report what it is in one sentence. What else can I do? If there are houses in the image, tell me how many. Just some image analysis basics. So let's run that script. Okay, we got our result. The provided image file appears to be a high-quality landscape photograph capturing a serene scene of rolling green hills, mountains, and a river, set against a breathtaking alpine backdrop. I mean, the name alpine, green landscape, green meadows, mountain, river peaks. I should have renamed that. It might have hinted it a bit. Still, it analyzed it couldn't count the houses, but that's a model thing, not a GenAIScript thing. So basically, currently we're testing the same thing, just passing files. That's not that interesting. It passes files correctly. It did not save files correctly, which sucked, honestly. SEO front matter. This will generate metadata. You're SEO expert at creating front matter for Markdown. Only generate the front matter section, update description. So you can write this as Markdown and give it guidance. And this will go through the... Okay, this is a bit more complex. Merge logic to integrate generated front matter fields. Generated. That is interesting. Function label before generated. Def file merge. Okay. And this will basically run and add metadata to your Markdown files. That seems like an interesting way to do it. Vocalization challenge. Yeah, of course, it can vocalize documentation. You can give it a bunch of files and tell it to summarize them. How do they save them? Let's see. That's interesting. Wank name, CLI argument injection. So you can have command line interface arguments for your script that are custom, and here we get it French. Okay, that's interesting. And then we have the file. You're an expert at computer science education. Give it context. Translate the document. Do not translate, whatever. Specific guidance. And we get the output. Okay, I like that. You can automate it. That's useful for cases like this, especially if you do translations of documents all the time. This can help you. Even if you do something like a workflow where you upload documents to Google Translate, or you have some tool, this could work better, especially if you have a script. Click on a folder, translate, go drink coffee, come back, and just edit. Box vocalization, that's pretty similar. Release notes. Oh, it can generate release notes. Def function, host exec. Wow, that's interesting. Look at that. It can execute command line interface utilities with host exec and save it. Tag commits diff. And then we define these and you write release notes. Oh, that's so cool. I really like that. And this host exec is extremely useful, actually. Because you can execute an arbitrary command and take its output. That's powerful, man. That's very powerful. And also kind of dangerous. I mean, what I think here is that this can be dangerous, really. If people especially download scripts they do not read, which, let's face it, people do all the time. And let's say there's a script here that's distributed to people with 3,000 lines or something. And the guidance is click right install it and run this command with a bash script and execute the GenAIScript for it so that you get the results. This can basically not only execute something on your host, it can manipulate the data, but I guess it's not more dangerous than executing any bash or whatever script on your computer. It's as dangerous as any other script. It just analyzes the data differently, really. Okay, image alt text. Yeah, that makes sense. It can really add alt text to your images in bulk. That's awesome. That tool reminds me of some of the old tools on operating systems like the macOS Automator and things like that, where you were, I think Microsoft had that Power Macros or something, whatever it was called, to automate some mundane tasks. But nobody did that because it took time to algorithmically define how to solve a task. And that was a hassle in its own way. So this can make it better. You could automate some mundane tasks with this, probably. If you write a good script once, and it seems like a script is written very easily, you can use LLMs to modify your files. That's what it seems to be for. And here are some samples which you can actually use. You can generate a commit message. That's very cool. Run it on your source on your source folder, a script that checks out the changes and writes commit messages. I can see how teams implement that as a mandatory practice for people that write terrible commit messages. Other items, we have browser automation, really? Oh, it has Playwright integration. So there is an API that's not small, to be honest. Prompty. Okay, but the strength of this seems to be file manipulation in bulk and saving reusable scripts to do tasks which are easy with large language models. And I think it will shine if you really fine-tune the model with specific instructions like here. No, let me see which sample I like. SEO front matter, for example. I mean, yeah, this is where it shines. You refine this guidance and the things to avoid. You set the mundane things like input of files and output, in this case, merging of files. And by refining this prompt, you can look at this like your algorithm in classical programming. You repeat a refined script many times, over and over, so that you do your job or your tasks. And that seems reasonable, as long as you review what it outputs, of course, because this is an LLM after all. So that seems reasonable. A scripting language to work with files and just automate. Really, files seems to be where it shines, from what I can see. File system access. I'm sure it has other features. If it has Playwright and browser access, you can do many other things. But these things will, at the end, be either saving a file or analyzing a file, merging the data with internet access and output. Although with Playwright, you could write... That's interesting. With Playwright, you could write a GenAIScript that interacts with the web user interface. And that opens up some possibilities. And as I think about it, you can write with host execute any command line. You can execute command line utilities. You can work with the web also. So the output can be not just files, but also... How do I enter the documentation? This is crazy. Come on. Just from getting started. Let me check Playwright again. So with browser automation, you could take data from the browser, but also interact. So imagine if you enter the same data to Power BI every week. and you take from CSV files that get saved in some shared network drive, which a lot of people do, by the way, although you might not believe that. I know people who do that as part of their job. And you could make Power BI as a web UI with a very specific box where you enter the data in a very specific format. If you write a GenAI script that extracts reliably that data from whatever arbitrary format you have and summarizes it properly, you can then just right click and it will go with Playwright, input that into the box, click submit, and you would do your mundane task. That's pretty cool and dangerous. Don't do that if you're doing some critical work or something important. But it seems like a possibility, to be honest. For data entry, for repetitive work, this has to be tested more thoroughly and check its sort of limits, I guess, and how error prone it is. But it is interesting for these kinds of repetitive tasks. All right, take care.